Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. I am here today to do a sort of addendum to my list of my most anticipated books of 2022. For that video, which I will link in the description box down below, I only talked about new releases, things that are coming up that I am interested in and want to read. This is a sort of addendum to that because I wanted to also think about some books that I had wanted to read in 2021 and didn't get around to for whatever reason. So this is a way of bringing these titles back up onto my radar screen, maybe putting them on yours as well, and making sure that I hold myself accountable to the idea that I would like to get to them at some point this year. And we'll see how that goes. Before we get into the video, I just want to say a quick thank you. In my last Friday Reads, I talked about how Joel and I both had COVID and were struggling a little bit with health. We got hit pretty hard with it and got a lot of really nice comments on that Friday Reads video. Very supportive, very kind. Thank you for all of that. I really deeply appreciate it. I have read all of the comments. I have not responded. I've fallen very much behind on that. I'm going to try over the next few days to respond to the comments. But if you left one, thank you. It really does mean a lot to me. And thank you for the support. Now let's get into the video. The first one is actually something I'm already in the process of working on, and that is the Love Songs of W.E.B. DuBois by Honorée, Fannone, Jeffers. I am listening to this on audio at the moment. Haven't made a whole lot of progress yet, but it is a really long audiobook. It first jumped onto my radar screen around the time it was released, and because I heard a lot of really good things about it, and then it was longlisted for the National Book Award. And I am very happy that I'm getting around to it now. I guess since I'm already kind of working on it, you can maybe consider this a sort of add-on to the list. But since I'm not done with it and I haven't made a whole lot of progress on it yet, I am definitely including it because I want to make sure I do finish it. I also think that this book is a potential contender for the Pulitzer Prize. So I also want to read it from that perspective. Right now, I think the Pulitzer is scheduled to be announced in April. They've delayed it for the last 2 years, so we'll see what happens with that. But I'm really happy that I am getting around to this one. I was very excited to try to get to it last year, but because of its length, I knew after it was released, it was unlikely to happen in 2021. So I'm glad it's happening in 2022. The next one is a really interesting case. It's Infinite Country by Patricia, Engel. The reason this is interesting is that it was released somewhere around March or April of 2021. And I got a copy, but then I started listening to it on audio, and I was really, really, really enjoying it. But I loved the writing so much that I actually stopped myself about halfway through and decided that I wanted to pick up the physical book instead because I wanted to be able to take some time to sit with the language. And when I made that decision, I ended up never getting back to the book, which is particularly disappointing because it's a small book. Let's see how many pages it is. It's about 191 pages. I probably should have just powered through the audio, but like I said, the writing was good enough that I really wanted to be able to take time to really soak it in and spend some time with it and enjoy what Patricia Engel was saying. The other thing that happened with this was that I believe it was March because I was participating in the BookTube Prize. And March ended up being a really crazy month for that because I ended up doing all of my reading for that round in that month. And I had been working on this in addition, and then I had to put it to the side to finish all of my BookTube Prize reading. You might notice I'm not participating in the BookTube Prize this year. And this kind of situation is why it, I think, is not something I wanted to do to myself in 2022. So that's another reason this got pushed to the side. And one reason I really want to make sure I include it in this video is because, as I said, I was really enjoying the first half of the audio. So I want to make sure I get back to it. I have a bad track record of getting back to things when I stop reading them halfway through, even if I was liking them. So this is a way of holding myself accountable and saying that I really want to finish Infinite Country by Patricia Engel at some point this year. Should be fairly easy to fit in. I can use this as one of the prompts for my Montana Book Company reading challenge for 2022. as well. By the way, I created a reading challenge for that on Storygraph. I'll talk about it more in my Friday Reads video for this week, but you can find that challenge here. I talked to the owners of the company and they said that I could make it public. So I'll talk more about it on Friday Reads. But if you want to participate in that, I made a reading challenge where you can add your prompts in the books that you use for it on the Storygraph. Again, I'll talk more about it. And this would definitely fit for at least one of the prompts on that. So bonus and another incentive to help me get to it at some point in 2022. The next one is Abundance by Jakob Guanzon, which is one of my most anticipated books of 2021. It is the only one from that list that I didn't get to that I'm including here. There are still books that were on that video that I would like to get to, but I decided that this is the one that I really wanted to prioritize. It was longlisted for the National Book Award, didn't make it for that. It's the story of a father and a son who are living in a pickup. It's about income inequality, and I am really intrigued by it. I believe each chapter starts with the amount of money that the father has left, and it's not looking like a very happy book, but it is something that definitely captured my interest, and I am hoping I will get to at some point this year. I'll put a link to the full video of books that were my most anticipated for 2021, but I think of the ones that are left, it's probably the one that I would prioritize the most, which is why it's getting this spotlight right here. Then we'll talk about Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo, which got onto my radar screen a little late in the year for me to try to fit it in 2021. So I knew it really wasn't going to happen in 2021, but I want to try to get to it before the urgency fades. It won the National Book Award for Young People's Literature. It's an LGBTQ story. It's about the Telegraph Club is a lesbian club, and it's set during the McCarthy era, and it deals with the prejudice that Asian people experienced in the wake of World War II and all of that. So for many, many, many reasons, I want to make sure I get to this one in 2022. I believe this just came out in paperback, but I ordered a copy of the hardcover when the National Book Award was announced, and I'm really looking forward to it. Malinda Lo gave a really great speech when she won the National Book Award, and that is one of the reasons that I felt like I had to immediately purchase a copy, because I wanted to support her and support this type of story, because she talked about how there are a lot more LGBTQ inclusive stories being published now, but they are also being challenged very hard in libraries and in other areas. So I wanted to throw some support in its direction. And this is just a way of making sure that I keep this book on my radar so I don't end up with a copy really wanting to read, and then years later I still haven't read it, because that has happened to me with a lot of books. And I don't want it to keep happening. This is sort of a prime candidate for my Pride Month pile of possibilities, if nothing else. And if I haven't gotten to it by then, it is basically a shoo-in for that list. As is the next book that I want to talk about, which is Rainbow Milk by Paul Mendez. This is a book that's been on my radar for a while, and I just didn't get around to it because there wasn't a copy available on audio, or I didn't have a copy on my shelf. It was gifted to me by Erica from The Broken Spine for my birthday. Thank you, Erica. And I kind of knew I wasn't going to manage to fit it in by the end of the year, given everything I wanted to accomplish in 2021 reading. But I've been wanting to read this book for a really long time, and I don't want it to keep sitting. And that's kind of the danger zone that I don't want Last Night at the Telegraph Club to fall into, because I've been wanting to read this one for a long time, and it's been a long time and I haven't gotten to it, and I don't want that to happen to either one of these books anymore. So I'm putting it in this video. If I haven't gotten to it by June, it's a natural candidate for my pile of possibilities for Pride Month, and we'll see, because I've heard really great things about it, and I've definitely wanted to get it, and now I have a copy, thanks to Erica again. So I really don't have any excuse, and I need to make sure I get around to reading it. The next one is something that I ended up not reading because I didn't want to depress myself in the latter part of the year. It's After Francesco by Brian Malloy. This is something that Joel read and really loved. It was one of his favorite reads of 2021. Chelsea from the Montana Book Company recommended it, and she has a good track record of recommendations for me. So I'm really looking forward to it. The thing is, it is about a man who has lost his partner to AIDS, and the grief that follows after that, and how he rebuilds his life. And in the latter part of the year, 2021, there was a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. I hit a bit of a reading slump with some of it. So I kind of knew that I was not in a good mental or emotional space for a book like this. So I let it fall off of my priority list until 2022. But now that we're in 2022, I'm feeling a little bit better mentally, emotionally. So far, it's a fragile thread. We'll see what happens as the year progresses. But I feel like I'm in a better space to get to after Francesco. And it's definitely a topic that interests me. If you follow along on this channel, you know that. And again, this is sort of a natural candidate for my pile of possibilities for Pride Month. So this video has at least 3 solid candidates for that. And I'm going to have to make some tough choices when I get around to actually finalizing my pile of possibilities for Pride Month. I really want to get to Razorblade Tears by S.A. Crosby soon. This is something that immediately sounded interesting to me when it was released. I've heard really good things about S.A. Crosby's previous book, which I believe was called Blacktop Wasteland. Yes, Blacktop Wasteland. So he's an author that's been on my radar for a while. And when this one was released, it's about 2 men who are ex-cons who sort of team up to find out who murdered their sons. Their sons were gay lovers. And as they look for justice for their sons, they have to deal with the ways in which they allowed their relationships with their sons to be complicated because their sons were gay. And that sounds really interesting to me. I didn't get to it in 2021. It is available on audio, on Scribd, and I think that's probably the way I'm going to do it. What's really bumping up my sense of urgency for this book is that Charlie from the Montana Book Company listened to I think they listened to it on audio, and they said that they think it's something that I would enjoy. So that put a sense of urgency on this. It was the audio that I want to do after I finally get around to finishing the love songs of W.E.B. DuBois. We'll see how that goes, because now I have another audio that I might slip in first. So again, putting it in this video is sort of my way of making sure I hold myself accountable to trying to get to this, because I definitely want to. And I want to do it before it loses that sense of urgency for me to get to it, especially now that I've heard good feedback from somebody who has done solid recommendations for me in the past. So thank you, Charlie, for that. The next 2 are also actually candidates for my pile of possibilities for Pride Month. So you can, again, see how my pile of possibilities is going to be stacked and crowded, and I'm going to have to make some really tough decisions about what I'm actually going to be able to reasonably accomplish in the month of June when we get there. But that's later. That's down the road. Don't have to worry about it right now. In the beginning of 2021, I purchased a copy of A Boy's Own Story by Edmund White for myself. Didn't get around to reading it in 2021. I have never read a book by Edmund White, and I really need to fix that. I think 2022 needs to be the year. This is the book of his that I would prioritize to do that. It's a sort of LGBTQ classic, which means it's right up my wheelhouse in my interests. So if I haven't gotten to this by June, I would like to do it in June. We'll see how that works, because again, I now have 4 books that are in my pile of possibilities for Pride Month, and we're about to talk about a 4th. But Edmund White is an author I really feel like I need to get to soon. Him and Paul Monette are up there. And I chose to put Edmund White on here. I have a copy of his memoir, City Boy. And that's one that I have been intending to get to for a really long time. But I decided that I feel like this is the one that I would really want to prioritize. It is the first book in I believe it's a trilogy. And I've heard mixed things about the trilogy in general. But because it is such a classic, I feel like it's something that I should definitely experience. And since I have a copy, I got to get around to doing it. And so putting it in this video will hopefully give myself that kick in the pants to say, hey, Greg, get around and do it. And then the other one that's on my pile of possibilities for Pride Month is Cantoras by Carolina de Robertis. I've heard so many good things about this book, and it also has this really pretty cover for whatever that's worth. It's about 5 women in South America, in Uruguay, in the 1970s. And I don't think all of them are lesbians, but at least some of them are, or at least have lesbian elements in it. And that is why this would be a sort of candidate for my Pride Month pile of possibilities. I've heard so many good things about this book, and it seems perfectly suited to my interests as a reader. And I also want to read more LGBTQ books that don't focus on the G in the LGBTQ. So the fact that this is lesbian would definitely suit that goal. So it's a natural fit for what I want to do in 2022. And therefore, I would love to try to get to it. The final book I want to talk about is one that would require a reread first, possibly, because that is what I was thinking about I would need to do before I would read it. There's a book called Alec by William de Canzio, which was published last year, and it is basically the story of Maurice. I always say Maurice by E.M. Forster, but I think if you're in the UK, you pronounce it Morris. So I'm going to keep saying Maurice, and if you are in the UK and it is in fact pronounced Morris, please let me know in the comment section down below, and I will try to do better in the future. But I'm so used to calling it Maurice that I don't think I could ever stop at this point. But anyway, if you have read Maurice by E.M. Forster, in the end, Maurice, there's no way to talk about the plot of Alec without spoiling, but Alec is a gameskeeper who becomes a romantic interest for Maurice. Let's just say that. So this is obviously the story of Alec, the gamekeeper, but I believe it also goes beyond the story of Maurice. I'm trying not to know too much about what Alec is because I would want to be surprised, but I feel like I would need to read Maurice again first before diving into Alec. So I know two people have recommended this book to me very much, and if you've read it, let me know. Do you need to read Maurice first? It's been a while since I did, so let me know in the comment section down below. I would like to do it, but I feel like the barrier that's keeping me from getting to Alec is that I feel like I need to do a reread first. So please let me know if that's necessary, if you know anything about Alec or if you have read it. I feel like in an ideal world, that is what I would do, but we'll see what happens with that. I really want to get to it. I love Maurice. It is one of my favorite books. E.M. Forster is probably my favorite author. I haven't read one of his books in a while, but I believe he is still my favorite author. So it's funny to say somebody's your favorite author when you haven't read them in a while. I should fix that. Maybe that would mean that a reread of Maurice is or should be in the picture. Anyway, so those are the books that I did not get around to in 2021 that I really want to prioritize for myself in 2022. If you have thoughts about any of them or anything I've said in this video, please let me know in the comment section down below. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.